The origin of man in Northern Europe. The earliest account of the origins of Germanic men comes from the Roman historian Tacitus, who wrote about a figure named Manus. According to Tacitus, Manus was the progenitor of the Germanic peoples, the son of Twisto, a primordial being described as born of the earth. Manus had 3 sons, who became the ancestors of 3 major groups, the Ingivones, Hermanones, and Istavones. These divisions would shape the identities of early Germanic tribes. The Ingivones, in particular, are significant because their name means friends of Ing, or folk of Ing, linking them to Ingvi, a figure central to their mythology. Ingvi later appears in Norse tradition as Ingvi Freyr, a fertility god associated with prosperity and kingship. The Old English rune poem also refers to Ing as having departed eastward over the sea, connecting him to early migrations and maritime tribes. This reinforces the idea that the Ingivones identified as seafaring people, likely inhabiting coastal areas. Interestingly, Ingvi is associated with the Inglings, a legendary dynasty in Sweden, suggesting shared ancestry between Scandinavian Norse tribes and West Germanic peoples. Despite being classified as West Germanic, the Ingivones trace their roots to Ing, who seemingly came from East Denmark or Scania, strengthening the link between early Germanic groups and the Scandinavian regions. Njord versus Manus and Twisto. In Norse mythology, Ingvi Freyr's father is Njord, a god associated with fertility, wealth, and the sea. However, in ancient Germanic traditions, Ing's father is Manus, who is described as a son of Twisto. Twisto, in turn, has striking parallels to Tyr, or Tiwaz, in Norse tradition, a god of war, law, and justice. Tacitus described Twisto as being born of the earth, which mirrors aspects of Ymir in Norse mythology, the primordial giant associated with creation. Tyr, an older god, may have once been the chief deity before being supplanted by Odin. Archaeological evidence supports this, as the Tiwaz rune, associated with Tyr, is older and more commonly found on artifacts than the rune for Odin. This suggests Tyr's role as a leader and bringer of order was foundational, but diminished over time as Odin, associated with magic and sorcery, rose to prominence. Importantly, this shift didn't occur only in Scandinavia. The West Germanic tribes also transitioned from worshipping Tiwaz Tyr to Woden Odin, reflecting broader religious changes across the Germanic world. Why did Odin supplant Tyr? The transition from Tyr to Odin as the chief deity reflects deeper cultural and religious changes. Scholars suggest that Odin's association with magic, wisdom, and sorcery played a key role in his rise to dominance. Odin's mastery of Seidr, a form of Norse magic involving prophecy and shape-shifting, may have made him more appealing to societal elites such as chieftains and poets who valued these attributes. In contrast, Tyr represented law, justice, and martial honor, values that may have been more relevant in earlier warrior societies. As cultures shifted toward valuing mysticism, cunning, and magic, Odin's characteristics gained favor. The Tiwaz rune, shaped like an arrow, symbolized Tyr as a leader and bringer of order, yet its decline on artifacts coincides with Odin's rise, reflecting this transformation. Scholars such as George Dumezil analyze this shift through the lens of Indo-European trifunctionalism, where gods are categorized by societal roles. Tyr represented law and justice, while Odin embodied sovereignty, magic, and wisdom, attributes that became more desirable as societies evolved. The reconnection of Norse and West Germanic tribes. The ancient connections between Norse and West Germanic tribes become clear through shared mythology. Both groups honored gods like Tiwaz Tyr and later Woden Odin, preserving elements of older traditions even as their beliefs evolved. The account of Ing's eastward journey from Denmark or Scania supports the idea that early Germanic tribes retained shared memories of migration and descent. Over time, these connections faded as cultural and linguistic differences developed, but the underlying stories remained similar. The story of Beowulf includes Swedes, Danes, Angles, among other tribes. Beowulf himself was a Geat, and Angles claimed descent from Danes themselves. In the epic, the Wolfings, mentioned as friends or relatives of the Danes, went on to become the Wuffingas of East Anglia. This makes sense because, in fact, Hrothgar of the Danes claimed descent from Sild Seth, a divine boy from a boat on the coast, while the Anglo-Saxons claimed descent from Siaf, a divine boy from a boat. Their stories come from an exact common source. Conclusion: the story of Manus and Tuisto provides a glimpse into the mythological roots of the Germanic peoples, uniting West Germanic tribes like the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes with Norse Scandinavians under shared ancestors. While Norse tradition evolved to emphasize Njord and Ingvi Freyr, and West Germanic tribes focused on Manus and Tuisto, their common origins are undeniable. The transition from Tyr as the chief god to Odin marks a broader cultural shift driven by changes in warfare, leadership, and the rise of magic and sorcery in religious practice. By examining these early connections, we gain a deeper understanding of how mythology and migration shaped the identity of Northern Europe, eventually leading to the reunion of Norse and Anglo-Saxon descendants during the Viking Age. Manus descendants would continue to call themselves Man, where it is used not only in North Europe, but now encompasses the world.